The first thing you're aware of is the cold. Not a gentle, creeping cold, but a deep, biting cold that seems to radiate from the very stones of the hut around you. It's a cold that lives in your bones. You pull the rough wool blanket tighter around your shoulders, the fabric scratching faintly against your skin. The air you breathe is thin, so thin it feels like it's not quite enough. A constant reminder that you are perched nearly 4,000 meters above the sea. Outside, the world is a canvas of absolute black, a pre-dawn darkness found only in the highest, most remote corners of the world. The stars, unobscured by clouds or city haze, are impossibly bright, but they offer no warmth, only a cold, silent glitter. This small stone hut is your world. It's called the Chasqui was a house for the runner. You share it with one other person, your partner in this endless, silent duty. Right now, he is asleep on a raised stone platform on the other side of the single small room. His breathing is slow, steady rhythm in the profound quiet. One of you must always be awake, always watching, always ready. Tonight, it is your watch, your job title, if such a thing existed, is Chasqui. You are a messenger for the Sapa Inca, the divine emperor, the son of the sun god Inti. You are a living, breathing part of the empire's circulatory system. This empire, the Tawantinsuyu, the four parts together, is unimaginably vast, stretching from modern-day Colombia down to Chile, a colossal territory stitched together by mountains, deserts, and jungles, and holding it all together isn't steel or written laws, but a constant flow of information. That's you. You are the human internet. You are a single, vital neuron in the brain of an empire. You shift your position on the hard stone bench, your eyes fixed on the narrow path outside your doorway. The road, the great Inca road, the Qhapaq Ñan. It is a pale, ghostly ribbon snaking its way down the mountain in one direction and up into more darkness in the other. Your entire existence is focused on that road. You're waiting for a flicker of movement, a distant sound, a sign that the message is coming. It could be anything. A report from a provincial governor, a request for troops, a count of grain stores, or maybe just a piece of fresh fish caught this morning in the ocean far, far below, destined for the emperor's plate in the sacred capital of Cusco. Your life is a study in repetition and patience. You run your leg of the relay, a stretch of about 10 to 15 kilometers, and then you wait. You wait. You rest, and you wait. You watch your partner run, and then you wait some more. It's a lonely job, punctuated by moments of extreme physical exertion. Historians still debate how you even got this job. Some argue you were handpicked from a young age, chosen from noble families for your speed and endurance, and trained rigorously for this sacred duty. Others suggest it was a form of tax, a labor tribute known as the mita, where communities would send their best young men to serve the state for a period of time. The truth is, you probably don't even know the grand politics behind it. You just know you are here now, serving your turn, your heart beating a steady rhythm in the thin, cold air, waiting for the race to come to you. The silence is broken by the faint hoot of an owl, a sound that only seems to deepen the quiet that follows. You steer down the path, into the dark. Your gaze is unwavering. You are not just a runner. You are a guardian of secrets, a link in an unbreakable chain, and your turn is coming. You can feel it, a subtle shift in the air, a tension that coils in your stomach. Soon, you will have to stand, stretch your stiff muscles, and prepare to become motion itself. You push yourself up from the stone bench, your joints protesting the cold with a series of dull clicks. Standing still for so long has allowed the chill to seep deeper, and movement is the only way to banish it. You begin a slow, deliberate routine of stretches, bending and twisting in the cramped space. Your body a familiar instrument you are tuning for a demanding performance. Your partner on the sleeping platform stirs, a soft groan escaping his lips. But he doesn't wake. He trusts you. The entire system is built on this implicit trust. Your eyes fall upon your gear, laid out with practiced neatness on a flat stone shelf. It's a minimalist collection, a testament to the fact that on the Qhapaq Ñan, weight is the enemy and speed is God. Your uniform is simple, a sleeveless tunic, the unku, woven from alpaca wool, durable and surprisingly warm for its weight. On your feet are as hot as sandals with soles made from tough, layered llama hide held to your feet with simple woolen cords. They're not comfortable by modern standards, but they are molded to your feet. Familiar, and they grip the stone paths better than anything else. Your gaze lingers on the three most important items. First is the puchutillo. It's a conch shell, polished smooth by countless hands, its pearlescent interior catching the faint starlight from the doorway. It's a beautiful object, a gift from the distant ocean, but its purpose is purely functional. When you near the end of your run, you will raise this to your lips and blow. The deep, resonant blast will carry for kilometers in the thin mountain air, a sound that says, "Wake up, get ready, I am coming." It is the sound of the relay itself, the acoustic button passed before the physical one. Next to it lies your Chasqui. This is your most personal item, a small, intricately woven bag with geometric patterns and vibrant reds and blues. The strap is long enough to wear over your shoulder, keeping the bag tucked securely at your side. Inside is your fuel, your secret weapon against the altitude and the burning in your lungs, a carefully measured bundle of dried cocoa leaves. Well, I'll get to those later, but for now, you put the bag gently. It is your companion on the lonely road. The final piece of your kit is a war aka, a sling woven from wool. To an outsider, it might look like a simple tool, maybe even a toy, but you know better. In skilled hands, a sling is a formidable weapon, capable of launching a stone with incredible speed and accuracy. It's not for show. The Andes are home to pumas and other dangers, and while the imperial road is safer than the wilderness, being unprepared is an invitation to disaster. You tuck it into the waistband of your tunic. It's a small weight, but a comforting one. This is the standard, state-issued kit of a Chasqui. But what else did you carry? This is a question that makes archaeologists and historians start waving their hands at conferences. The official record, gleaned from Spanish chronicles and the sparse archaeological findings, is silent on the small, personal details. Some scholars argue that you carried nothing more than what you see here. Your job was to be swift, unburdened. Food, water, and shelter were all provided at the Tamboes, the relay stations. So I carry extra weight. It makes a certain kind of cold, logical sense. But other historians argue for a more human reality. They suggest you would have carried a small, personal stash of essentials, a little pouch of toasted quinoa for a burst of energy, a piece of dried llama meat, charqui, perhaps a small gourd for water. Just in case, they point out that relying solely on the next station, which could be hours away over treacherous terrain, was a huge risk. A landslide could wipe out a section of the road, or a simple twisted ankle could leave you stranded. The debate continues because these organic items, food, gourds, extra bits of cloth, rarely survive for 5 centuries in the damp Andean soil. So the truth of your personal inventory remains your secret. Lost to time. For this run, you're traveling light. You have your tunic, your sandals, your tools. You trust the system. You trust the runner who is, at this very moment, pounding his way through the darkness towards you. You run a hand over the smooth, cool surface of the puchutillo. You adjust the Chasqui at your side. You are a bundle of potential energy, a coiled spring. The stretching is done. The mental checklist is complete. Now, all that's left is the trigger. You turn back to the doorway, your senses straining, listening past the whisper of the wind for a different sound. A sound carried on that same wind from miles away. The silence stretches on, but it feels different now. It feels expectant. The air in the Chasqui was eyes thick with the smell of old smoke and cold stone. But a new sensation begins to stir within you. Hunger. Not a desperate, gnawing hunger, but a deep, primal need for fuel. Your body knows what is coming. and it is demanding the resources to meet the challenge. You move to the small fire pit in the center of the hut, where a few embers still glow with a faint, sleepy orange light. Your breakfast is waiting, prepared hours ago. It's not a grand meal, but it is a powerhouse of nutrition. A perfect example of Andean ingenuity. You reach for a small ceramic bowl filled with a mush of cooked grain. It's quinoa. Today, it's hailed as a superfood in fancy health food stores. But for you and your ancestors, it's just food. It's the mother grain, a staple that thrives in the harsh mountain climate where corn struggles to grow. It's packed with protein and complex carbohydrates, a slow-burning fuel that will sustain you over the kilometers ahead. You eat it cold, scooping it up with your fingers. The taste is earthy, nutty, and profoundly familiar. Beside the quinoa is a small, hard strip of what looks like dark wood. This is Chasqui, or as the rest of the world now knows it, turkey. It's llama meat, salted and left to dry in the freezing, arid mountain air. The process is a form of natural freeze-drying, preserving the meat almost indefinitely and making it incredibly lightweight and protein-dense. You tear off a piece with your teeth and chew. It's tough, salty, and requires serious effort from your jaw. But as it softens, it releases a rich, game-y flavor. It's more than just sustenance. It's a taste of home, a connection to the herds that are the lifeblood of your people. This high-protein, high-carb diet was the engine of the empire, the logistics of feeding millions, including an army and a massive state workforce, was a monumental task. The Incas achieved it through a sophisticated system of state-run storehouses called Qhapaq. These were often built on high, windy hillsides, their brilliant design using natural ventilation to keep the contents cool and dry. They stored vast quantities of quinoa, potatoes, corn, and Chasqui, ensuring that even in times of drought or crop failure, the empire would not starve, and it ensured that a runner like you, in a remote mountain outpost, would always have a meal waiting. Now, for a little something extra. Tucked away in a small niche in the stone wall is a clay pot containing chicha. This is a fermented corn beer, a cornerstone of Andean social and ceremonial life. It's usually low in alcohol, especially the kind meant for daily consumption. It's cloudy, slightly sour, and surprisingly refreshing. You take a small sip. It's not about intoxication. You need your wits about you, but about ritual and energy. The slight sweetness is a welcome contrast to the salt of the Chasqui. Here's a quirky little detail that modern science is just beginning to appreciate. Your diet is incredibly good for you, but one of its key components is something you take for granted. The potato. The Andes are the birthplace of the potato, and your people cultivated thousands of varieties, from waxy red ones to meaty yellow ones, even some that were naturally frost-resistant. One of the most curious preparations was tuna. To make it, you'd spread potatoes out on the ground overnight to freeze in the frigid mountain air. Then, in the morning, you and your family would stomp on them. Yes, literally stomp on them with your bare feet to squeeze out the water. This process, repeated for several days, resulted in a black, recurred, freeze-dried potato that could be stored for years, even decades. Rehydrated. It makes a thick, starchy soup. It might not sound appetizing, but it was a brilliant solution to the problem of food security in an unpredictable climate. The idea of stomping on your breakfast might seem odd, but it was a crucial survival technology. You finish your meal, the feeling of fullness settling comfortably in your stomach. The energy from the food is already beginning to spread through your limbs, a warmth from within that pushes back against the external cold. The debate among historians here is a subtle one. Was this diet scientifically optimized, or was it simply the result of generations of tradition? The what works approach. Some argue the Incas had an almost clinical understanding of nutrition, deliberately combining foods to maximize performance for laborers and soldiers. Others believe it was more intuitive, a deep cultural knowledge passed down through mothers and fathers. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. A perfect marriage of tradition and practical results. You don't think about it in those terms. Of course, you just know that this meal, this quinoa, this Chasqui, is what turns your legs into tireless pistons. Your breakfast is complete. The fuel tank is full. You rise, feeling stronger, more alert. The world outside is still dark, but the faintest hint of gray is beginning to soften the eastern horizon. The day is coming, and with it, the message. You stand at the doorway again. A silent sentinel, your body humming with the energy of the mother grain and the dried flesh of the sacred llama, ready for the road. Your eyes follow the path as it disappears into the gloom. It isn't a muddy track or a simple dirt trail. It's a masterpiece of engineering, a testament to an empire that moved mountains without ever inventing the wheel. This is the Qhapaq Ñan, the great Inca road, and it is the artery that gives life to the Talwant and Suyu. Calling it a road is almost an insult. It's a network, a sprawling system of over 40 kilometers of paved, graded, and meticulously maintained pathways. From where you stand, you can see the craftsmanship. The path is paved with heavy, flat stones, fitted together with a precision that leaves barely a crack between them. They are not uniform, like modern bricks. Each stone is unique, shaped just enough to lock perfectly with its neighbors. The road is about 1.5 meters wide here, just enough for a person or a train of llamas to pass comfortably. On the downhill side, a low stone wall acts as a guardrail, a simple but effective safety measure against a misstep that could send you tumbling down the steep slope. You've run this section countless times, and you know its every dip and curve. You know the exact spot where the paving stones are worn smooth from centuries of footsteps, and the section a few kilometers on where a small, spring-fed channel runs alongside the path, a perfect place to splash your face with ice-cold water. This road is more than just a surface for running. It's a living part of the landscape, designed in harmony with it. When the terrain becomes too steep, the road transforms into a staircase with broad, shallow steps carved directly into the bedrock or built from massive stone blocks. You've climbed thousands of these stairs, your leg muscles burning, your lungs screaming for the thin air. In other places, where the road crosses a marshy valley, it becomes a stone causeway, raised above the soggy ground to ensure a dry, stable path year-round. The engineering is brilliant, but what makes it truly astonishing is the context. Your people built this network without iron tools, without wheeled vehicles, and without draft animals like horses or oxen. The heaviest lifting was done by human power alone. Massive stone blocks were quarried, shaped with harder river stones, and moved into place using nothing but ropes, ramps, and sheer collective effort. It was a colossal undertaking, a project that spanned generations and required the coordinated labor of hundreds of thousands of people under the Midas system. The main purpose of the Qhapaq Ñan was official state business. It wasn't a public highway for casual travel. Its primary users were people like you, the Chasqui, along with imperial officials, armies on the move, and caravans of llamas transporting goods from the QLLQA storehouses. The road connected every important part of the empire, from the coastal deserts to the high Andean peaks and the fringes of the Amazon rainforest. It was the physical manifestation of the Sapa Inca's power, a clear message to every corner of his realm that they were part of a single, unified state. Here's a small, fascinating detail that's easy to miss. The road wasn't just a path, it was an information system in itself. Along the route, there were markers, small piles of stones called Apache TIS. Travelers would often add a stone to the pile as an offering to the mountain spirits, a prayer for safe passage. But some historians argue these markers might have also served a more practical purpose, perhaps indicating distances or the difficulty of the path ahead, a kind of ancient road sign system. It's one of those tantalizing theories that is difficult to prove definitively, as the Spanish, in their zeal to stamp out local religious practices, dismantled many of these piles, viewing them as pagan shrines. So whether that pile of stones you see up the path is just a collection of prayers or a coded steep grade ahead sign is a secret the mountains keep. The greatest debate among archaeologists and historians regarding the Qhapaq Ñan is its age. The Incas certainly expanded and perfected the network. But how much of it did they build from scratch? Many scholars argue that the Incas were brilliant integrators, not just innovators. They likely incorporated and improved upon thousands of kilometers of roads that were built by earlier civilizations, like the Waray and the Tuankat. The Incas were the ones who unified these disparate paths into a single, coherent system, creating the superhighway of its day. But the idea that parts of the road beneath your feet might be centuries older than the Inca Empire itself is a humbling one. You are not just running on an Inca road. You are running on a path layered with history, a corridor through time. The sky is lightening now, is soft, pearly gray that silhouettes the jagged peaks to the east. The stones of the path are becoming more distinct, their textures and colors emerging from the gloom. The road is waiting. It's a hard, unforgiving surface, but it's a predictable one. It is your partner in this race, a silent, unyielding guide. You take a deep breath, the cold air stinging your throat. The road is there for you. All it asks in return is your strength, your focus, and your speed. The pre-dawn chill still gnaws at you, but it's the altitude that poses the real challenge. It's a constant, invisible pressure on your body, making your heart work harder and your lungs feel just a little too small. To conquer this, you turn to your most trusted ally, the one tucked away inside your colorful chuspah. You reach into the small bag and pull out a few dried, olive green leaves. They are leathery to the touch and give off a faint, earthy, tea-like aroma. These are coca leaves, the sacred plant of the Andes. You perform a small, almost unconscious ritual. You select 3 of the best leaves, holding them up for a moment in a gesture of respect to the apus, the mountain spirits that watch over you. Then, you place them in your mouth, one by one, tucking them into your cheek. You don't chew them aggressively. Instead, you gently moisten them with saliva, slowly breaking them down. Next, you reach into a tiny, carved gourd you also pull from your chuspah. It contains a white, powdery substance. This is LLIPTA, a catalyst made from the ash of quinoa stalks or other alkaline plants. You add a tiny pinch of the ash to the wad of leaves in your cheek. The effect is almost immediate. The alkaline ash activates the alkaloids in the coca leaves, releasing their power. A slight numbness begins to spread across your cheek and tongue, followed by a subtle but profound shift in your perception. The gnawing feeling of cold recedes. The nagging ache in your muscles softens. Most importantly, the feeling of breathlessness eases. It's not a frantic jolt of energy like a modern energy drink. It's a calm, steady, and enduring wave of vitality. Your focus sharpens, the world seems clearer, and the monumental task ahead feels manageable. The coca leaf is, without a doubt, one of the most misunderstood and controversial plants in history. For you and your people, it is a divine gift from the gods. It's used in religious ceremonies, as a medicine to treat ailments, as a social lubricant, and, most critically, as a tool to enable life and labor at extreme altitudes. It suppresses hunger, thirst, and fatigue, making it possible for people to perform incredible feats of endurance, like building the Qhapaq Ñan or running it as you do. For the Incas, coca was so valuable it was often used as a form of currency. Its cultivation was strictly controlled by the state, and its use was a privilege, a marker of your important role in the empire. To the Spanish conquistadors who would arrive in the future, coca was a demonic tool. They saw its use as a sign of paganism and tried to eradicate it, associating it with devil worship. Yet, they quickly ran into a problem. When they forced the indigenous population to work in the silver mines under brutal conditions, they found that without coca, the workers' productivity plummeted. They sickened and died. In a moment of supreme hypocrisy, the very same Spanish authorities who condemned the leaf as evil became its biggest distributors, using it to fuel the very system of exploitation that was destroying the people who revered it. One of the oddest tidbits about coca is its journey into global pop culture. In the late 19th century, A French chemist named Angelo Mariani infused coca leaves into Bordeaux wine, creating a beverage called Vin Mariani. It became wildly popular in Europe, endorsed by popes, kings, and artists, all of whom praised its wonderful restorative effects. A few years later, an American pharmacist in Atlanta, inspired by Vin Mariani, created his own non-alcoholic version. He mixed coca extract with cola nut extract. His name was John Pemberton, and the drink he created was the original Coca-Cola. For a few decades, every bottle of the world's most famous soft drink contained a small amount of the same active ingredient that is now coursing through your system. The academic debate surrounding coca is fierce and often colored by modern politics, while its traditional use is well documented. Historians and anthropologists still argue about the extent of its consumption among the general populace versus the elite. Some sources suggest its use was highly restricted, a privilege reserved for the Inca nobility and state functionaries like yourself. Others propose that its use was more widespread, a common part of daily life for anyone living and working at high altitudes. The archaeological evidence is ambiguous. Coca leaves have been found in the graves of both commoners and elites, but it's hard to say if this represents delirious or a special funerary offering. The truth is likely complex, varying by region and over time. For you, these debates are meaningless. The leaf in your cheek is not a symbol of status or a historical artifact. It is a practical tool, a sacred bond with the earth. The subtle numbness has become a gentle hum of energy. The air still feels thin, but your body now feels ready to use it efficiently. You have paid your respects. You have awakened the spirit of the leaf, and it, in turn, has awakened you. You spit out the depleted leaves from your earlier watch and roll the new quid into a more comfortable position in your cheek. The world is bathed in the soft, gray light of dawn, and then you hear it, faint but unmistakable, a sound that cuts through the whisper of the wind. The low, mournful, and urgent blast of a put-you-tea shell, echoing from down the mountain. The message is here. The sound hangs in the air for a moment before the wind snatches it away. It's a low, resonant tone, more felt than heard at this distance. It's the sound you've been waiting for. Your heart, which was beating in a slow, steady rhythm, gives a single, hard thump against your ribs. The waiting is over. The race is on. Immediately, your body shifts from a state of passive readiness to active preparation. You jog lightly in place, shaking the last vestiges of sleep and cold from your limbs. You take another deep, deliberate breath. The coca leaf is doing its work, sharpening your senses, making the world seem more vivid. The distant sound of the put-you-tea has acted like a starting pistol, firing directly into your brain. Your partner, who was a still lump under a woolen blanket just moments ago, is now sitting up, fully alert. He heard it too. He says nothing, but his eyes meet yours in the dim light. There is a shared understanding, a silent communication that passes between you. It's time. Be ready. Be swift. He swings his legs off the stone platform and begins his own quiet preparations, getting ready to take over the watch once you are gone. The handoff between you isn't just about the message. It's about this sacred duty, this hot, this lonely vigil. You step just outside the low doorway of the Chasqui was I, peering intently down the winding stone path. The sun is not yet over the mountains, but the eastern sky is now a brilliant explosion of orange and pink, casting the opposing mountains in a deep purple shadow. The world is slowly filling with color and light. You scan the section of the Qhapaq Ñan visible to you, looking for movement. At first, there is nothing, just the immense, silent landscape. The road twists and turns, disappearing behind rocky outcroppings and dips in the terrain. You know from experience that the runner could be much closer than he appears. The acoustics of these valleys are strange. Sound can bounce and echo in unpredictable ways. The put-you-tea blast could have come from 5 kilometers away, or 2. Then you see a tiny, moving speck of color against the gray stone and brown earth. He is on a straight stretch of the road about 1.5 kilometers down the mountain. A lone figure, running with a steady, loping gait that seems impossibly fast for this altitude. Even from this distance, you can recognize the familiar, rhythmic pumping of his arms, the slight lean of his body into the slope. He is a mirror image of you, another link in the same chain. As you watch him grow steadily larger, you complete your final checks. You adjust the choose bar at your side, ensuring it won't bounce or chafe. You retie the cords of your huttes, making them snug but not so tight as to cut off circulation. You take a sip of water from a clay pot just inside the door, rinsing your mouth. You are a machine being primed for a single, explosive purpose. The approaching runner is a marvel of human endurance. He has been running for probably the better part of an hour, over the same unforgiving terrain you are about to face, and he won't be slowing down. The protocol of the handoff is brutally efficient. There is no time for pleasantries. No how was your run. The goal is to transfer the message with as little loss of momentum as possible. You will begin running as he approaches, matching his speed, so the exchange can happen in motion. This is a key feature that made the Chasqui system so astonishingly fast. Messages could travel up to 240 kilometers in a single day, a speed that rivaled the Roman post on their famous paved roads. But the Romans had horses. You had only your lungs and your legs. This speed was achieved by breaking the journey into a series of short, high-intensity sprints. Each Chasqui was a specialist on his own small section of the road. You knew every stone, every step, every potential hazard. You didn't need to conserve energy for a marathon. You needed to deliver a blistering pace for about 10 to 15 kilometers, and then you were done. It was the ancient equivalent of a 4x 100-meter relay, but stretched over the length of a continent and lasting for centuries. One of the fascinating, if slightly morbid, details that Spanish chroniclers noted was the absolute dedication of the Chasquis, the punishment for failing in your duty, for losing a message, for being slow, or for abandoning your post, was severe, often death. But the chroniclers also noted that this was rarely necessary. The role of a Chasqui was one of immense honor and prestige. You were serving the Sapa Inca directly. Your duty was sacred. The motivation was as much spiritual as it was political. Historians continue to debate whether this was pure, zealous devotion or a highly effective form of state propaganda. Was your loyalty born of genuine faith in the divine emperor? Or was it the result of a lifetime of indoctrination where the alternative was unthinkable? It was probably both. The runner is closer now, perhaps only 400 meters away. You can see the details. The colored band around his forehead, the sweat glistening on his arms, the focused, determined expression on his face. You step out onto the Qhapaq Ñan yourself. Facing him, you begin to jog slowly, then pick up your pace, your eyes locked on his. The air crackles with anticipation. The silence of the mountains is about to be broken by the soft slap of sandals on stone and the gasping exchange of a few vital words. The message is almost in your hands. The approaching runner is a blur of controlled motion. His chest is heaving, his face a mask of exhaustion and fierce concentration. But his pace doesn't falter. As you run towards him, closing the final gap, your movements become a synchronized dance. You match his stride, falling into step beside him on the stone path. For a brief moment, you are running together, two bodies moving as one. There is no time for names or greetings. His eyes, wild with effort, lock onto yours, to the governor in V. Qhapaq Ñan. He gasps, his voice rough and strained. The count of the new llama herds. It is urgent. This is the oral message, the small piece of verbal information that accompanies the physical object he is about to give you. It provides context, a destination, a level of urgency. It's a critical part of the system, a backup and a clarification for what you are about to receive. Then, to handle, with a deft, practiced movement, he swings a bundle from his shoulder and passes it to you. You catch it without breaking stride. The object is a khipu. It feels strange in your hands, a complex tangle of cords and knots, heavier than you'd expect. The main cord is thick, made of tightly spun alpaca wool, and from it hang dozens, perhaps hundreds, of thinner, multicolored strings. These pendant strings are covered in a bewildering variety of knots. Simple overhand knots, complex figure-8 knots, long knots with multiple turns. You have no idea what it means. And that is the genius and the mystery of the Qhapaq. You are a messenger, a living vehicle for the data. But you are not meant to be the reader. Your job is to protect the subject with your life and deliver it, and the accompanying verbal message, to the next Chasqui in the chain. The Qhapaq is for the Qhapaq, the not-keeper or not-reader. A highly trained official who can decipher the meaning encoded in the strings. As you turn and accelerate up the path, leaving your fellow runner behind you to stumble into the rest and recovery of your Chasqi's eye, you glance down at the Qhapaq in your hand. The colors of the strings are significant. White might mean silver or peace. Yellow could signify gold or corn. Red might stand for war, or the Sapa Inca himself. The knots themselves are based in numerical system. A knot at the bottom of a string represents the ones place. A knot higher up is the tens. Higher still the hundreds. And so on. A lack of a knot in a certain position means 0. So you know, on some level, that you are carrying a sophisticated spreadsheet. You're carrying data. The count of llamas, the bushels of maize in a storehouse, the number of soldiers in a garrison. This is the mainstream historical understanding of the Qhapaq, that it was a complex accounting and statistical tool, a mnemonic device for recording numbers. It was the Inca Empire's version of a database, allowing an unliterate society to manage a vast and complex economy with staggering efficiency. This alone is a monumental intellectual achievement. But here's the strange part. When the Spanish arrived, they wrote of Qhapaq that recorded not just numbers, but also stories, histories, and even poems. One chronicler claimed that a Qhapaq could encode a message with the same subtlety as a written letter. This has led to one of the most exciting and contentious debates in Andean studies. Was the Qhapaq more than just an accounting tool? Could it have been a true system of writing? A small but growing number of researchers, led by scholars like the late Gary Ayrton, have proposed that the Qhapaq was a three-dimensional binary code. They argue that other factors, the spin direction of the string, S minus spun or E minus spun, the color of the string, the type of knot, the way the strings were attached to the main cord, could all represent binary bits of information. By combining these variables, the Qhapaq could have encoded not just numbers, but narrative information, essentially writing in a tactile, physical language. This would make the Qhapaq a unique form of writing, unlike any other system developed on Earth. Most historians remain skeptical, awaiting a Rosetta Stone Qhapaq that can be definitively matched to a Spanish text. Until then, the full meaning of the object in your hand remains locked away. It's a system of communication so alien to our modern sensibilities that we are still, 500 years later, trying to crack its code. A quirky, almost unbelievable fact. After the Spanish conquest, some indigenous communities continued to use Qhapaq for centuries, sometimes for official administrative purposes under Spanish rule, and other times for their own local record-keeping, hidden from the authorities. In a fascinating twist, some communities even used them to record Catholic prayers, adapting this ancient technology to the new religion. The idea of reciting a Hail Mary by feeling a series of knots is a mind-bending fusion of two completely different worlds. You secure the Qhapaq, looping its main cord over your shoulder so it rests securely against your back. The weight is a constant reminder of your responsibility. The verbal message, to the governor in Vil Cashuaman. Count of the new llama herds. Urgent is a mantra you repeat in your mind, locking it into memory. You don't understand the knots, but you understand the word urgent. You settle into your run, your sandals slapping against the ancient stones. The sun is finally cresting the eastern peaks, flooding the valley with golden light. Your race has begun. The initial burst of adrenaline from the handoff begins to fade, replaced by the steady, grueling reality of the run. No, it's just you, the road, and your own body. And the first thing you have to conquer is your own breathing. At this altitude, the air is a cruel paradox. It is crisp, clean, and invigorating, but it is also desperately thin. Each breath you take delivers less oxygen to your muscles than it would at sea level. Your body is screaming for fuel that the air cannot provide. This is where your training takes over. You fall into a rhythm that is as much a part of you as your own heartbeat. It's a rhythm of breath and stride, a carefully managed dance with hypoxia. You breathe in sharply through your nose, a quick, forceful sniff that fills the top of your lungs, and then you exhale slowly and completely through your mouth, pushing every last bit of stale air out to make room for the next precious inhale. In out, in out, it's a constant, conscious effort. If you let your breathing become ragged and shallow, you'll be gasping and dizzy within a kilometer. Your stride is short and efficient. There's no bounding or leaping. That would be a waste of precious energy. Instead, your feet stay close to the ground. A steady, percussive slap minus slap minus slap of your hut-a sandals on the stone path. Your arms are bent at the elbow, pumping in time with your legs, not just for balance, but to help drive you forward. You lean into the slight incline of the road, using gravity as a partner rather than fighting it as an enemy. Your entire body is a finely tuned engine, calibrated for one thing: endurance in a low-oxygen environment. The landscape around you is brutally beautiful. To your left, the mountain face rises up, the sheer wall of rock and hardy-eyed grass. To your right, the valley plummets, a dizzying drop to a river that looks like a silver thread far below. The scale of it is almost too much to comprehend. You're a tiny, insignificant figure moving through a world of giants, but you don't have time for sightseeing. Your eyes are fixed on the path about 5 to 10 meters ahead of you, constantly scanning for loose stones, uneven pavement, or a patch of treacherous moss. A twisted ankle out here isn't an inconvenience. It's a potential disaster. It could mean the failure of your mission, and in the worst case, a slow, lonely death. The physical sensations are intense. A fire is starting to build in your quadriceps, a familiar burn that you have learned to ignore. The coca in your cheek is working its magic, holding the worst of the fatigue at bay. But it's not a miracle cure. It's more like a filter, dulling the pain signals your body is sending to your brain. You can still feel the effort, the strain, but it's muted, pushed to the background. The primary sensation is the rhythmic pounding in your chest and the constant, desperate conversation between your lungs and the air. This incredible physiological adaptation is a subject of great interest to modern scientists. People native to the Andes, whose ancestors have lived at high altitudes for thousands of years, have developed unique genetic traits. They tend to have larger lung capacities and produce more red blood cells, which are the body's oxygen-carrying vehicles. Their very blood is different, better equipped for this environment. Historians and bioarchaeologists debate whether the Incas understood the science behind this. Did they specifically choose Chasqui from highland communities because they knew they were physiologically better suited for the job? Or was it simply a practical matter of recruiting from the local population who happened to live along these high-altitude routes? The answer is almost certainly the latter. A case of practical logistics aligning perfectly with human biology. The Empire was smart enough to put the right people in the right place, even if they couldn't write a scientific paper explaining why it worked. A strange and little-known fact about running at altitude is its effect on your senses. While the coca sharpens your focus, the low oxygen can play tricks on your peripheral vision, sometimes creating faint, shimmering illusions at the edge of your sight. Furthermore, the dry, thin air changes the way you sweat. At sea level, sweat pools on your skin, a clear sign of exertion. Here, the sweat evaporates almost instantly in the arid wind. You can be losing vast amounts of fluid without ever feeling drenched. Dehydration is a silent, creeping danger. You have to trust your training, not your senses, to know when you need to drink, which is why that small gourd of water some historians think you carried would have been so vital. You've been running for what feels like an eternity, but you know from the position of the sun that it's probably only been 20 minutes. You round a sharp bend in the road and the path ahead becomes a long, brutal staircase carved into the mountainside. Your heart sinks just a little. Stairs are the worst. They break your rhythm and demand a new kind of power from your legs. You shorten your stride even further, tuck your chin, and begin to climb, one agonizing step at a time. The burn in your thighs intensifies, and your breathing becomes a ragged hiss. In, out, in, out. You focus on the rhythm, on the verbal message, on the weight of the khipu on your back. Just keep moving. The next Chasqui is waiting. After what feels like 1,000 steps, the brutal stone staircase finally ends, depositing you back onto a relatively flat stretch of the Qhapaq Ñan. Your thighs are screaming in protest, and your lungs feel like they've been scraped dry. For a moment, you slow to a brisk walk, your hands on your knees, gasping for air. You can't afford to stop for long, but a few seconds of recovery can mean the difference between finishing your run and collapsing on the path. This brief respite gives you a moment to think about what awaits you at the end of your leg. Another Chasqui was a small stone hut, almost identical to the one you just left. And inside that hut, a small, windowless, purpose-built structure called a tambo. The two terms are often used interchangeably, but there's a subtle difference. The Chasqui is your specific dwelling, the barracks for you and your partner. The tambo is the broader term for the network of way stations built by the Inca state along the road. These tambos were the logistical backbone of the empire, the vital nodes in the network. They were far more than just rest stops for Chasqui. They were strategically placed all along the Qhapaq Ñan, roughly every 15 to 25 kilometers, a distance that represented a day's walk for a common traveler or an army, or a single Chasqui sprint. They were, in essence, state-sponsored inns, supply depots, and administrative centers all rolled into one. The life inside a tambo was a world unto itself, a microcosm of the Inca state. The size and complexity of a tambo depended on its location. The one you are heading towards is a simple one, little more than the Chasqui and a small storage hut. But larger tambos on major routes were sprawling complexes. They had lodgings for traveling imperial officials, large halls for soldiers to sleep in, and vast QLLQA storehouses packed with food, weapons, and textiles. They had corrals for llama caravans and workshops for repairing sandals and equipment. Everything a state traveler could possibly need was provided, free of charge. It was a system designed to keep the empire moving. The life of the people who staffed the tambo was one of routine and service. These were not glorious positions. The staff were local people, serving their mito labor tax. They were responsible for maintaining the buildings, cooking the food, tending to the llamas, and being ready at a moment's notice to provide for anyone traveling on official business. It was likely a monotonous, repetitive existence, living in a remote location and catering to a constant stream of strangers. You, as a Chasqui, were an elite user of this system. When you arrived, exhausted and spent, there would be food and water waiting for you, a place to rest, all prepared by the nameless, faceless staff of the tambo. Here's a curious detail that reveals the incredible foresight of the Inca planners. The tambos were often stocked with goods that were not produced locally. A tambo high in the mountains, like yours, might be stocked with dried fish from the coast. A tambo in the coastal desert might have a supply of freeze-dried potatoes. From the highlands, this was just about providing variety. It was a strategic decision. It ensured that armies and officials moving from one ecological zone to another would have access to familiar foods, preventing the disruption that can come from a sudden change in diet. It also meant that the supply lines were self-contained. A region didn't need to feed the army passing through it from its own local stores, preventing famine and resentment. The debate among historians is about the true nature of a tambo system. Was it a benevolent, state-run welfare system, as some romanticized accounts suggest, or was it a rigid, authoritarian to love control? The evidence points to the latter. Access to the tambos was strictly controlled. You couldn't just be a farmer and decide to go on a road trip. Commoners were forbidden from using the Qhapaq Ñan or its facilities without an official purpose and permission. The road was for the state, and the tambos were the state's infrastructure. It was a system that reinforced the strict social hierarchy of the empire. It was generous to those who served the Sapa Inca, and completely closed off to those who did not. You push off your knees and force your legs back into a jog, the memory of the coming rest pulling you forward. The thought of the tambo is a beacon of hope. It's a place of temporary sanctuary in this vast, wild landscape, but there's also a loneliness to it. The people there will feed you and shelter you, but they are not your friends or family. They are state functionaries. Just like you, the conversations are minimal, focused on the needs of the service. Life in the tambo network, for all its efficiency, was an isolated one. You were a vital cog in a massive machine, but a cog nonetheless, surrounded by other cogs, all turning in unison to the rhythm of the empire. The path ahead dips down into a small ravine, and you know from memory that when you climb out the other side, you will be on the final stretch. You can almost taste the cool water, almost feel the relief of stopping. This vision of the tambo, a place of simple, predictable, and impersonal care, is what fuels your final push. It's not home, but for a few hours, it will be enough. As you crest the final rise out of the ravine, your body is a symphony of screaming muscles on aching joints. Every stride sends a jolt through your system. It's at this point, when your physical reserves are nearly depleted, that you have to rely on something else. You have to run for a reason bigger than yourself. You have to run for the Sapa Inca. You repeat the title in your mind, a silent chant that syncs with the swap of your sandals. Sapa Inca is the unique Inca, the emperor, but he is so much more than that. He is a living god, a direct descendant of Inti, the sun god. His blood is divine, his word is law, and his well-being is intrinsically linked to the well-being of the entire cosmos. The sun will not rise, the rain will not fall, and the crops will not grow without his divine intercession. To serve him is not just a civic duty, it is a sacred obligation. This belief is the ideological glue that holds the entire empire together. It justifies the rigid social hierarchy, the mighty labor tax, the state's control over every aspect of life. Everything flows from the Sapa Inca in the sacred capital of Chasqui, and everything flows back to him. The gold and silver mined from the earth are not treasure. They are the sweat of the sun and the tears of the moon, and they belong to him. The finest textiles, the most bountiful harvests, the fastest runners, all are his. The pressure of this responsibility weighs on you more heavily than the khipu on your back. The message you carry, the count of the new llama herds, might sound mundane, but to the Sapa Inca, it's vital information. It's data for managing the empire's wealth, for planning military campaigns, for distributing resources. A delay in this message could have cascading consequences that you can't even imagine. And if the message were really critical, like news of a rebellion or a failed harvest, your speed would be the difference between order and chaos. Life and death. You are not just carrying knotted strings, you are carrying the stability of the realm. The emperor lives in a world of unimaginable opulence in Chasqui. His palaces are paneled with gold. He eats from golden plates and drinks from golden goblets. He wears clothes made from the finest vicuna wool, so soft it feels like silk, and these clothes are said to be worn only once before being burned. He is carried everywhere on a golden litter by a retinue of attendants. His every need is met. His every whim is catered to. But this life of luxury comes with a heavy burden of ritual and responsibility. His days are filled with religious ceremonies, audiences with governors, and decisions that affect millions of lives. Here's a bizarre and fascinating aspect of the Sapa Inca's divine status, his mortality. When the Sapa Inca died, his power didn't simply transfer to his successor. His body was carefully mummified, and his mummy, the Malki, continued to live. It retained all of its property, its palaces, and its servants. The dead emperor's mummy would be brought out for major ceremonies, consulted on important matters, with a living oracle speaking for it, and treated as if it were still alive. This meant that each new Sapa Inca had to build his own palace and conquer new lands to build his own wealth, as he couldn't inherit from his predecessor. This unique system of split inheritance is one of the key theories historians use to explain the explosive, almost frenetic expansion of the Inca Empire in its final century. Each new ruler needed to fund his own eternal afterlife. This reverence for the mummified dead is a point of contention and fascination for scholars. Was it purely a religious belief, a deeply held conviction about the afterlife and the continued agency of ancestors? Or was it also a brilliant political tool? By keeping dead emperors as active political players, the powerful families and lineages who tended to the mummies could retain influence and wealth for generations. It created a strange, crowded political landscape where the living had to constantly negotiate with the powerful, silent presence of the dead. Some historians argue this system eventually became unstable, creating competing factions and internal tensions that weakened the empire on the eve of the Spanish arrival. You don't think about these complex political machinations. Your understanding is simpler, more direct. The Sapa Inca is the center of your universe. The verbal message you carry is destined for one of his governors, but the information it contains is ultimately for him. Your loyalty is to the man, the god, the symbol. This thought gives you a new surge of energy. It transforms the pain in your legs from a sign of weakness into an offering. Every burning step is a prayer. Every gasp for air is a testament to your devotion. You are no longer just a runner. You are an extension of the divine will. You are the eyes and ears of the Son of the Sun. This realization straightens your back and quickens your pace. The pain is still there, a dull, constant fire, but it no longer matters. You have a purpose that transcends mere physical endurance. You are running for your God. The mantra of the Sapa Inca gives you strength. But today, your mission has another, more tangible focus. This isn't just about abstract data on a khipu, tucked inside a special, waterproof pouch made of tightly woven reeds, and nestled carefully alongside the knotted cords. Is your real cargo. It's a fish, a small, silver-skinned sea bass, caught just yesterday in the Pacific Ocean, hundreds of kilometers away and 4,000 meters below you in altitude. The fish is wrapped in damp seaweed to keep it cool and fresh, but you can still smell the faint, clean scent of the ocean. It's a smell that is completely alien to this high, dry, rocky world. It's a smell of impossible distance. And that's the whole point. The Sapa Inca, living in his mountain capital of Cusco, must have fresh fish. It is a symbol of his power, a testament to the reach and efficiency of his empire. The ability to command the ocean's bounty to appear on his plate in the heart of the Andes is a display of control over time and space that is more impressive than any gold wall. And you are the final link in that incredible supply chain. This was not a one-off, special delivery. The Spanish chroniclers who witnessed the last days of the Inca Empire wrote with astonishment that the emperor in Cusco ate fresh seafood daily. This claim seems almost unbelievable, a logistical nightmare even with modern technology. But the Chasqui system made it possible. A fish would be caught in the morning, handed to the first Chasqui on the coast, and then passed from runner to runner, up the steep mountain roads, across rope bridges, through day and night, in a relentless, non-stop relay. It was a race against decay, a high-stakes delivery service where the product had a shelf life of about 36 hours. Your pace is urgent. The verbal message about the llama count is important, but the fish is perishable. The urgent tag on the message likely applies more to the sea bass than the statistics. You can feel the slight weight of it, a cool, damp spot against your back. It's a strange and precious burden. This incredible feat highlights a key aspect of the Inca economy. It wasn't based on money. It was a system of reciprocity and redistribution, all controlled by the state. The fisherman who caught this fish didn't sell it to you. He gave it as his mita, his labor tax. He fulfilled his obligation to the state by providing fish. In return, the state provided him with security. food from the LQA storehouses in times of need, and the infrastructure of the empire. The goods flowed from the producers to the center, and the state's protection and resources flowed back out. You are not a delivery driver working for a wage. You are a part of this grand, complex, and continuous exchange of energy and resources. Here's a little-known culinary detail about this process. How did they keep the fish from spoiling in the heat of the lower valleys, while the seaweed wrap helped? Some food historians speculate that the coastal runners may have used an early form of ceviche. They might have cooked the fish slightly in the acidic juice of a local fruit, a process that would have helped preserve it for the first few crucial hours of its journey before it reached the cooler, high-altitude air where natural refrigeration took over. It's a tantalizing theory that this famous Peruvian dish may have had its origins in the practical needs of the imperial delivery system. The main point of contention for modern historians is whether the fresh fish daily claim is literally true or a slight exaggeration. Some argue that it was likely irregular, but not necessarily daily, occurrence, a display of power reserved for special occasions. They point to the immense effort involved and question whether it would be sustainable as a daily routine. Maintaining that level of peak performance from hundreds of runners day in and day out would be incredibly taxing on the system. They suggest that the Spanish, eager to emphasize the wealth and power of the empire they had conquered, may have embellished the truth. Other historians argue that we shouldn't underestimate the Incas. They believe the system was more than capable of this feat. They suggest that multiple fish may have started the journey, ensuring that at least one would arrive in pristine condition. The system was built on redundancy and efficiency. For them, the daily fish delivery was the ultimate proof of concept, the killer app of the Chasqui network. The debate continues. But as you run, the damp patch on your back feels very real. You imagine the fish's journey, from the fisherman's net to the hands of the first runners sprinting across huts, and then up into the foothills, passed from one stranger to another, each one pushing their body to its limit. The fish has traveled farther and faster than any normal creature from the sea. It has flown over mountains on the wings of human endurance. Now it's with you, in the thin, cold air of the high tundra, just 1 or 2 runners away from its final destination. You are a crucial part of a small, daily miracle, and you cannot fail. You cannot be the one who lets the Sapa Inca's fish go bad. The thought makes you push harder, your legs finding a deeper well of strength. The path takes a sharp turn around a colossal granite boulder, and you are suddenly plunged into shadow. The temperature drops instantly. This side of the mountain, shielded from the morning sun, is a different world. Damper, colder, and more menacing. Patches of slick, black ice cling to the paving stones in the darkest corners, remnants of the overnight freeze. You slow your pace, your eyes scanning the ground, your steps becoming more deliberate and careful. A fall here would be unforgiving. This is the other side of the Qhapaq Ñan. For all its engineering genius, it cannot tame the Andes. The mountains are alive, and they are indifferent to the ambitions of emperors. Your run is not just a race against time. It's a constant negotiation with a powerful and unpredictable natural world. Your biggest fear is not the ice, but what might be watching you from the rocky ledges above. Pumas, the great mountain lions of the Andes, are the apex predators here. They are masters of camouflage, and their tawny coats blend perfectly with the rock and dry grass. You know they are most active at dawn and dusk, exactly the times when you are often running. You've never seen one up close on a run, but you've seen their tracks. You've heard stories from other Chasquis. An attack is rare. The constant flow of runners usually keeps them at a distance, but not unheard of. You unconsciously touch the waraka sling tucked in your waistband. It feels like a flimsy defense against a creature of such power, but it's better than nothing. Your best defense is awareness, constantly scanning the terrain, listening for the sound of a dislodged pebble from above. The dangers are not just physical. The mountains are home to spirits, their peers. They are ancient, powerful beings who dwell in the highest peaks. They can be benevolent, offering protection to those who show respect, but they can also be vengeful if angered. Every runner knows this. The small ritual you performed with the coca leaves wasn't just for show. It was a genuine plea for safe passage. Some stretches of the road are known to be unlucky, places where the wind whispers in strange voices or where the shadows seem to move on their own. You run a little faster through these sections, your heart pounding for reasons beyond mere physical exertion. And then there's the weather. In the Andes, the weather can change in a heartbeat. A clear, sunny morning can turn into a maelstrom of freezing rain, hail, or even snow, with little warning. You've been caught in it before. A sudden fog can descend, so thick you can't see the path 5 feet in front of you. A lightning storm can turn the high passes into a death trap. Your simple tunic offers little protection. In those moments, your only option is to press on, to rely on your intimate knowledge of the road to guide you when your eyes fail, and to pray that the Apus are feeling merciful. One of the lesser known, but ever-present, dangers of the road was geological instability. The Andes are a young, seismically active mountain range. Earthquakes are common, and landslides, or huicas, can wipe out entire sections of the road in an instant. A Chasqui could round a bend to find the path simply gone, replaced by a fresh scar of rock and rubble on the mountainside. This is where the Midas system showed its resilience. When a section of road was destroyed, a call would go out to the local communities, and work crews would be dispatched to repair it with incredible speed. The Empire treated a broken road like a severed artery. It had to be fixed immediately. Historians and archaeologists are constantly trying to piece together the disaster history of the Qhapaq Ñan. By studying soil layers and sediment deposits, they can identify ancient landslides and floods that intersected with the road. It's a field of study that paints a dramatic picture of the constant battle between Inca engineering and the raw power of nature. The debate is not if these disruptions happened, but how the Chasqui system adapted to them. Was there a protocol? Did runners have designated alternate routes? Did they have to turn back? The chronicles are silent on these specific logistical details, leaving us to imagine the scene. The lone runner, clutching a vital message, staring at a chasm where a road used to be, forced to make a life-or-death decision on the spot. You navigate the icy patch successfully and emerge back into the sunlight. The warmth on your skin is a welcome relief. You pass through the shadowed section without incident. No pumas, no angry spirits, just the pounding of your own heart. But the experience has left you with a heightened sense of vulnerability. You are a fragile, soft-bodied creature in a world of hard edges, immense scale, and unpredictable power. Your speed and endurance are your greatest assets, but they are no guarantee of safety. The Empire can pave a road through the mountains, but it cannot conquer them. Your run is an act of defiance, a small, fleeting human victory against a backdrop of geological time and untamable wilderness. You pick up your pace again, eager to leave the shadows and their secrets behind you. The physical toll of the run is immense, but the mental challenge is just as demanding. As you settle back into your rhythm, your focus shifts from the external dangers of the path to the internal task of preserving the message. You have two responsibilities: the physical khipu on your back and the verbal message locked in your memory. You repeat it to yourself, the words a silent drumbeat in your mind. To the governor and vil Qhapaq Ñan, count of the new llama herds. Urgent. The phrase has become detached from its meaning, a string of sounds you must protect. You cannot afford to let your mind wander, to let the fatigue muddle the words. You must deliver it exactly as you received it. This dual system of communication, a physical, data-rich object paired with a short, spoken summary, was a stroke of genius. It was a built-in system of checks and balances. The verbal message provided immediate context. When you hand it off to the next runner, he will instantly know the destination and urgency, even before he has a chance to properly secure the khipu. It allows for a faster, more fluid exchange. The khipu, in turn, contained the deep, detailed data that was too complex to memorize and recite. Imagine the potential for error in a purely oral system. A message passed between dozens of people over hundreds of kilometers would inevitably become corrupted. like the children's game of telephone. Words would be misheard, details forgotten, numbers jumbled. The Qhapaq prevented this. The numbers were literally tied into the chords, but without the verbal tag. The Qhapaq Qhapaq at the final destination might not know where the data came from or what it pertained to. The two parts needed each other to be complete. This verbal component was communicated in Quechua, the official language of the Inca Empire, or more accurately, a specific dialect of it often called Classical Inca. The Incas were brilliant administrators, and they understood that a unified empire needed a unified language. As they expanded, they made Quechua the language of the state. Local communities were allowed to continue speaking their own native tongues. There were hundreds of them across the Andes, but anyone who wanted to interact with the state, as a governor, a soldier, or a Chasqui, had to know Quechua. The Qhapaq Ñan was not just a road of stones. It was a corridor of language, carrying the sounds of Quechua to every corner of the realm. Your mother tongue might be Aymara or another regional language, but you are fluent in Quechua. It's the language of your profession. The words feel different in your mouth, more sona, more precise. You say them over and over, feeling their shape, ensuring they don't wear away with the friction of your run. Here lies a fascinating and quirky linguistic puzzle for historians. Quechua, as a language, has a feature called evidentiality. It has specific grammatical suffixes that indicate how the speaker knows something. For example, if you say something, you have to add a little tag to the verb that clarifies if you saw it happen yourself, if someone told you it happened, or if you're just guessing it happened. It's a language that has a built-in fact checker. This leads to a compelling, though unproven, theory. Some linguists and historians speculate that this feature of the language would have been incredibly useful for a system like the Chasqui relay. When you passed on the verbal message, did you use a specific evidential suffix? Did you say, "He told me that the message is for the governor," using the suffix for reported information? It would have been a way of encoding the chain of custody directly into the grammar of the message itself. A constant reminder that this is second-hand information, with the real proof resting in the Qhapaq. It's one of those beautiful academic ideas that is almost impossible to prove, as we have no audio recordings of Chasqui in mid-handoff. The main academic debate here is about how deep the Quechua minusization of the empire actually went. Some scholars, often called the maximalists, argue that the Inca state was highly effective in imposing Quechua, and that it became a widely spoken lingua franca across the entire Tahuantinsuyo. They point to the fact that Quechua is still spoken by millions today, from Colombia to Argentina, as evidence of its deep roots. Other scholars, the minimalists, are more skeptical. They argue that the imposition of Quechua was a slow process and, in many regions, was still quite superficial at the time of the Spanish conquest. They suggest its use was mostly confined to the state apparatus, the roads, the administrative centers, while the vast majority of the rural population continued to live their lives in their local languages. The truth of how the empire sounded likely lies somewhere in the middle. Your focus remains razor-sharp on your own small task. The words, "To the governor in Vilcabamba, Vilcabamba." You picture it in your mind, though you have never been there. It's a major administrative center on the road to Cusco. This message will pass through many more hands before it reaches its destination, but your responsibility is only for your section of the journey. You are the guardian of these few specific sounds. You are a human vessel for a few precious syllables, carrying them through the wind and the cold, ensuring they arrive at the next station as pure and clear as when they were first spoken. You've been running for what must be close to an hour. Your body is an engine of pain, but your mind is clear, focused on the twin burdens of the Qhapaq and the verbal message. As you crest a small hill, the road stretches out before you, a long, straight line cutting across a high, windswept plain. In this moment of steady, rhythmic running, a strange thought enters your mind. Why this way? Why go to all this trouble? Your empire is home to some of the most brilliant engineers and artisans in the world. Your people can build earthquake-proof walls, weave textiles finer than silk, and perform successful skull surgery. You have an unparalleled understanding of agriculture, hydraulics, and astronomy. And yet, for your most critical task, communication, you rely on the brute force of human legs. You've seen drawings and heard stories from traders about the strange tools of other peoples. Far away, the concept of the wheel, for instance, is not entirely unknown. Inca artisans made toys for children, small ceramic animals with circular pieces of wood or stone for feet, allowing them to be pulled on a string. The principle is there. You can see it in the spindles your mother uses for weaving wool. The circle, the axle, it's not a mystery. So why not use it for transport? The answer is brutally simple and right in front of you. The Andes. Look at the road you're on. A moment ago, you were climbing a 1,000-step staircase. Before that, you were navigating a narrow, winding path on the edge of a cliff. In a few kilometers, you might have to cross a deep gorge on a swaying rope bridge. A wheeled cart would be laughably useless here. It would be a cumbersome burden, a complete liability. The terrain of the Empire, with its dramatic, near vertical ascents and descents, is fundamentally hostile to the wheel. And what would pull this hypothetical cart? The largest domestic animal you have is the llama. Llamas are incredible creatures, perfectly adapted to the Andes. They can carry loads, up to about 30 kilograms, over long distances with minimal food and water. They are the backbone of your cargo transport system, moving goods in large, slow-moving caravans. But they cannot be ridden for any significant distance, and they certainly can't pull a heavy cart. They are too small, and their nature is famously stubborn. If you overload a llama, it will simply lie down and refuse to move. There are no horses, no oxen, no large draft animals to provide the necessary horsepower. So the Inca Empire made a deliberate, intelligent choice, faced with a unique set of environmental and biological constraints. They engineered a solution that bypassed those constraints entirely. They created a system based on what they did have in abundance: people, organized, dedicated, and incredibly fit people. The Chasqui system was not a primitive technology. It was a highly sophisticated adaptation, a triumph of human-powered logistics over a challenging landscape. This conscious rejection of the wheel for practical purposes is a fascinating case study for historians and technologists. We often view history as a linear progression of technology, with the wheel as a fundamental stepping stone to civilization. The Incas proved that this is a biased view. They achieved a level of social and administrative complexity that rivaled any old world empire, all without one of its most essential inventions. It forces a minus evaluation of what advanced truly means. Is it about having a specific set of tools, or is it about creating the most effective solutions with the resources you have? Here's a quirky little fact that underscores this point. The only place the Inca road system even remotely resembles a modern highway is in the flat coastal deserts. In these areas, the road widens into a broad avenue, sometimes up to 15 meters across, flanked by low adobe walls. But even here, where a wheeled cart could theoretically work, it was never adopted. The system was already in place, optimized for runners and llamas. The cultural and logistical inertia was too strong. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The great academic debate here revolves around the concept of technological determinism. This is the idea that a society's technology determines its social structure and cultural values. For a long time, historians looked at the Incas and said, no writing, no well how did they manage? But a newer school of thought, which is now largely dominant, flips this on its head. It argues that social and environmental needs determine which technologies are developed and adopted. The Incas didn't need the wheel, so they didn't develop it for transport. They needed a way to count and record vast amounts of data. So they poured their intellectual energy into perfecting the khipu. They didn't have horses, so they perfected the human runner. Their technology was a direct reflection of their world and their priorities. You don't frame it in these academic terms. Your thoughts are more grounded. You look at your own defeat, clad in simple sandals, striking the ground with a tireless rhythm. You think of the runner who came before you and the one who waits for you ahead. You are not a substitute for a missing technology. You are the technology. You, and the thousands of others like you, are the most efficient, most adaptable, most intelligent system imaginable for this land. The thought fills you not with pride, but with a sense of profound greatness. This is the way it is meant to be. The Empire moves at the speed of a running man because that is the fastest and best way to move. The logic is inescapable, as solid as the stone path beneath your feet. Your thoughts return to the precious cargo on your back. The fish is a temporary concern, but the Qhapaq is the soul of the message. You can treat it, but you are intimately familiar with its physical presence. You feel the weight of the main cord, the gentle sway of the pendant strings against your tunic. Each one of those strings, with its unique color, texture, and pattern of knots, is a vessel of meaning. You run your fingers over the outside of your back, tracing the lump of the Qhapaq. The standard theory, the one every official understands, is that you are carrying numbers. The knots are arranged in a decimal system, a sophisticated method of accounting. The Qhapaq will eventually read this and look at a string and say, "This represents 347 llamas, or this signifies 52 bushels of maize." It's a brilliant, tangible spreadsheet that allowed the Inca state to micromanage a continent's economy. Without it, the empire would have drowned in its own data. But you've heard whispers, stories told between Chasqui and the quiet moments of waiting in the tambours. Stories of khipu that held more than just numbers. Tales of an old Qhapaq in a provincial capital who could read the history of a lineage from a bundle of strings, or another who claimed to have a Qhapaq that recorded a sacred myth, a song for the gods. Are these just folk tales, the product of lonely nights and overactive imaginations, or is there something more to it? This is where you touch upon the bleeding edge of Andean scholarship, a debate that is trying to unlock the deepest secrets of your culture. The idea that the Qhapaq might be a form of writing, the true narrative script, is electrifying. The theory, as championed by researchers like the late Gary Ayrton, is that the system was binary. Each choice the Qhapaq maker made could represent a single bit of information, a yes or no decision. Consider the complexity. First, the material. Was the string made of cotton or wool? That's one binary choice. The color. There were over 2 dozen standard colors, but they could be combined, twisted together to create even more variations. The spin of the string. Was it spun clockwise, as a twist, or counterclockwise, as twist? The direction of the knot itself. Was the final loop of the knot facing forward or backward? The way a pendant string was attached to the main cord. Was it attached from the front or the back? If each of these choices represents a bit of data, then a single string on a Qhapaq could hold a huge amount of information, far more than just one number. The theory suggests that these binary codes could have represented phonetic sounds or syllables, essentially spelling out words in a 3-dimensional, tactile language. It would be a system of writing so unique, so completely alien to the ink on paper traditions of the rest of the world, that it's taken us centuries to even begin to conceive of it. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for this narrative Qhapaq theory comes from a Spanish document called the Historia et Rudimente Linguae Peruanorum. It's a dictionary and grammar of Quechua written by Jesuit missionaries in the early 17th century. In it, the Jesuits mention that they used khipu to record confessions and the sins of the local people. This is a tantalizing clue. Sins and confessions are stories, not numbers. They are narratives of wrongdoing. If the Jesuits were using khipu this way, it means they must have learned a system for encoding narrative, likely from the indigenous Qhapaq themselves. Frustratingly, they never wrote down the key to how it worked. A truly bizarre, almost unbelievable discovery related to this is the existence of the Naples Qhapaq. It's a massive, incredibly complex Qhapaq that was sent to the King of Spain in the 16th century and is now housed in a museum in Naples, Italy. A few years ago, A researcher was studying this Qhapaq and discovered that it was part of a pair. Its twin was a detailed written document by a Spanish official, describing the same local community. The hope is that by meticulously comparing the knots and strings of the Naples Qhapaq to the data in the Spanish document, a pattern might emerge, a kind of Rosetta Stone that could finally crack the narrative code. The work is painstaking and ongoing, a massive cryptographic challenge. The dominant view among most historians remains cautious. They argue that while the binary theory is brilliant, there is not yet enough definitive proof. They maintain that the primary, and perhaps only, function of the Qhapaq was accounting. They suggest the stories of narrative Qhapaq were a misunderstanding by the Spanish, or that these story Qhapaq were simply complex mnemonic devices, visual aids to help an oral storyteller remember a sequence of events, rather than a direct transcription of the words themselves. The debate is passionate and ongoing. You, of course, know nothing of this future debate. You only know the weight on your back and the whispers you've heard. As you run, the Qhapaq feels different now. It feels less like a spreadsheet and more like a locked box. It contains secrets, perhaps just numbers, perhaps something more. You're its guardian, but its inner world is closed to you. You are carrying a letter you can never hope to read, a message from one initiated mind to another, and your role is simply to be the faithful, unknowing conduit. The fiery, windswept plain eventually gives way to more broken terrain. The path begins to descend sharply, zigzagging down the side of a steep canyon. The air grows warmer and thicker with every meter you drop in altitude, a welcome relief for your oxygen-starved lungs. But the easy breathing comes at a price. Your leg muscles, accustomed to the uphill burn, now have to work in a different way, absorbing the shock of each downward step, a punishing, jarring rhythm, and then you hear it. Before you see it, you hear it. A low, droning, creaking sound, accompanied by the rush of wind and water. It's the sound of a chaga, a bridge, but not a bridge of stone or wood. This is the quintessential piece of Inca engineering, a creation of breathtaking ingenuity and terror. A rope bridge. You round a final switchback, and it comes into view. The canyon is perhaps 100 meters across, a sheer drop to a raging river far below. The water churns white and brown, a torrent of melted snow and mountain rain. And spanning this chasm is a suspension bridge made entirely of woven grass. It's a sight that would freeze the blood of an outsider. The main cables, as thick as your torso, are woven from thousands of individual strands of ichu grass, the tough, fibrous grass that grows all over the highlands. These 5 massive cables, 3 forming the floor and 1 for each handrail, are anchored to massive stone pylons on either side of the gorge. The floor is a mat of woven sticks and reeds laid across the main cables, and the sides are a web of smaller ropes connecting the floor to the handrails. The whole structure sways and undulates in the wind, a living, breathing thing. It looks fragile, organic, and terrifyingly temporary, but you know better. These bridges were incredibly strong and durable, capable of supporting the weight of people and llama caravans. They were a brilliant solution to the problem of crossing the impassable canyons of the Andes. Building a stone bridge across a gap this wide would have been impossible. The rope bridge was light, flexible, and could be built using only local, renewable materials. You don't hesitate. Hesitation is the enemy on a rope bridge. You take a steadying breath, fix your eyes on the stone pylon on the other side, and step out into the abyss. The sensation is immediate and deeply unsettling. The bridge sags under your weight, and the floor, a loose weave of sticks, feels unstable beneath your sandals. The whole structure begins to sway with your movement, a sickening side-to-side motion. The handrails, also made of rope, are loosened, offer more of a psychological comfort than real stability. Your knuckles are white as you grip them. The wind whistles up from the canyon floor, threatening to unbalance you. The roar of the river below is a constant, deafening reminder of the consequence of a single misstep. The key is to find the rhythm of the bridge, to move with its sway rather than fight against it. You keep your center of gravity low, your steps deliberate and placed in the center of the walkway. You do not look down. You never look down. You focus only on the far side, the solid, unmoving ground that is your goal. The maintenance of these bridges was a sacred, communal task. Each year, the local communities responsible for a bridge would gather for a festival. They would work together to twist new grass into cords, braid the cords into massive new cables, and then, in a single day of coordinated effort, they would let the old bridge fall into the canyon below and hoist the new one into place. It was a massive feat of social organization, a ritual that renewed not just the bridge, but the bonds of the community itself. A truly mind-boggling fact is that this tradition has not entirely died out. In one remote corner of Peru, in the province of Canas, a single Inca rope bridge, the Qhapaq, is still maintained in exactly this way. Every June, the 4 communities on either side of the Emporium River Canyon gather for a 3-day festival to rebuild their bridge from scratch using hand-twisted grass. It's a living link to your world, a tangible piece of Inca engineering that you can still, if you're brave enough, walk across today. In 2013, UNESCO recognized the knowledge and rituals associated with the Qhapaq Bridge as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Of course, there's a debate among engineers and historians about the true safety of these structures. How often did they fail? The Spanish, who were both terrified and impressed by them, wrote accounts of bridges snapping, sending people and animals plunging to their doom. Were these common occurrences, or rare, catastrophic events? It's hard to know. The archaeological record can't tell us how many bridges collapsed. Some historians argue they were remarkably safe, with the annual rebuilding process ensuring their integrity. Others suggest that travel in the Andes was an inherently risky business, and that bridge failure was a known, if dreaded, possibility. They were a calculated risk, a high wire act that the entire empire depended on. You are halfway across. The wind gusts, and the bridge lurches violently to the side. Your heart leaps into your throat, and you cling to the rope handrails. You run reduced to a desperate shuffle. You can feel the spray of the river on your face. Even from this height, you steady yourself, regain your rhythm, and push forward. Your focus is absolute. The world has shrunk to the narrow walkway, the swaying ropes, and the stone platform on the far side. You are no longer running on the earth. You are running on woven grass, suspended between the sky and the water, a tiny thread of humanity in the vastness of the canyon. You take the final, lurching step off the rope bridge and onto solid ground. The world stops swaying. You stand for a moment on the stone pylon, your legs trembling, your knuckles aching from their death grip on the ropes. The roar of the river is still in your ears, a dull thunder that slowly fades as you jog away from the canyon's edge. The relief is so profound it's almost a physical blow. As you settle back into a steady run on the familiar stone path, a feeling of connection washes over you. It's a connection to the man you took the khipu from, his face a mask of exhaustion. It's a connection to the man who is waiting for you at the next Chasqui was I, his body rested and ready. And it's a connection to the thousands of other runners, stretching in an unbroken line from the southern deserts to the northern mountains. You're all part of the same vast, silent brotherhood. You don't know their names. You may only see their faces for a fleeting second during the handoff. You don't know their families or their stories, but you know their struggle. You know the burn in their lungs, the ache in their legs, the fear they feel when crossing a swaying bridge in the wind. You know the lonely chill of the pre-dawn watch and the single-minded focus required to protect the message. This shared experience creates a bond that transcends words. It's a brotherhood of endurance. This network of runners was the Sapa Inca's nervous system, and you were all neurons firing in sequence. The empire's cohesion depended on your collective effort. A message from the governor of a newly conquered territory on the Ecuadorian border could reach the emperor in Cusco, a journey of almost 2.0 kilometers over some of the most difficult terrain on Earth, in as little as 5 to 7 days. This was a speed that was simply unheard of anywhere else in the world at that time. It allowed the Sapa Inca to govern his vast realm with an immediacy that his contemporaries could only dream of. He could receive intelligence, issue commands, and moved troops with breathtaking efficiency. You are not just delivering efficient statistics. You are the sinews of imperial control. When a local lord was considering rebellion, the knowledge that the Sapa Inca could learn of his plans and dispatch an army before he could even muster his own forces was a powerful deterrent. The Chasqui network was as much a weapon of psychological control as it was a tool of communication. Your constant, visible presence on the roads was a reminder to everyone that the eyes and ears of Cusco were everywhere. A fascinating, and somewhat counterintuitive, aspect of this system was the runner's social status. You were not slaves. On the contrary, being a Chasqui was a position of great honor. You were chosen for your physical abilities and your loyalty. You were exempt from other forms of the might attacks. You were fed and housed by the state. According to some Spanish chroniclers, Chasquis were so respected that they could travel unmolested even through enemy territory if the Inca Empire was at war. To harm a Chasqui was to attack the Sapa Inca himself, a taboo that few would dare to break. However, historians debate the reality of this idealized image. Was the honor and prestige enough to compensate for the brutal physical demands and the profound isolation of the job? Some scholars argue that while the position was honorable, it was also incredibly taxing, and that the prestige was a form of state propaganda to encourage recruitment and ensure loyalty. They suggest that for many, being a Chasqui was less a glorious calling and more a grueling, if respected, form of mandatory service. Archaeological evidence from the skeletons of potential Chasquis is still being studied, looking for signs of stress fractures and other markers of a life of extreme running, which could paint a clearer picture of the physical cost of this honorable profession. You pass a small, humble shrine on the side of the road, a pile of stones, and a bachito, adorned with a few faded coca leaves and a colorful feather. You slow for a second, touch two fingers to your lips, and nod your head in respect. You don't know who left the offerings. It could have been another Chasqui, a traveling official, or a llama herder. But in this small gesture, you feel that sense of connection again. You are all travelers on this same road, subject to the same dangers, protected by the same mountain spirits. The sun is higher in the sky now, and the day is growing warm. Your tunic is damp with sweat. The end of your leg is getting closer. You can feel it. Your body knows the distance. You think of the next runner, waiting for you. Is he young, eager, and full of nervous energy? Or is he a veteran, calm and patient, who has run this route 100 times? It doesn't matter. He is your brother. He is waiting to take your burden. This thought, this image of a faceless comrade waiting to continue the race, is a profound comfort. You are not alone in this vast landscape. You are part of a chain, and your only job is to not be the one who breaks it. As you push through the final kilometers of your run, a subtle detail about the khipu on your back begins to bother you. When you took it from the other runner, in that fleeting moment of exchange, you caught a glimpse of it, among the strings of muted, earthy tones, the whites, browns, and yellows. There was one string that stood out. It was a single, vibrant, crimson chord, a red string, in the complex color-coded language of the khipu. Red was a color of immense significance. It was the color of the Ma's capicha, the crimson fringe worn on the Sapa Inca's crown, the very symbol of his authority. Red meant royalty, red meant the state, and in the context of a message hurtling across the empire, red often meant one thing: danger, war, rebellion, something of grave importance that required the Sapa Inca's immediate attention. Suddenly, the verbal message, count of the new llama herds, feels thin, incomplete. Was it a deliberate mystericaton? A piece of mundane information to mask the true, urgent nature of the khipu's contents? This was a known security measure. In case a Chasqui was captured or overheard, the simple verbal message would reveal nothing of importance. The real secret was in the knots, and the red string was a silent scream. Your pace quickens. The word urgent, which you had associated with the perishable fish, now takes on a much more sinister meaning. This is not about a spoiled meal. This could be about a brewing conflict. The llama count might be a census of animals available to feed a moving army. The message's destination, Qhapaq Ñan, was a major strategic and military outpost. The pieces click together in your mind, forming a picture you'd rather not see. The responsibility on your shoulders feels 10 times heavier. You are no longer just a delivery boy. You are a carrier of a state secret, a potential harbinger of violence. The fate of soldiers, the security of a province, could be tied up in the knots on your back. The use of Qhapaq in military logistics and communication was one of their most critical functions. The Inca army was a formidable force, well organized and disciplined, but its greatest strategic advantage was information. The Sapa Inca and his generals, stationed in Cusco or at a regional command center, could get near real-time updates from a distant battlefield. They could receive reports on troop numbers, casualties, and supplies, and in return, send out new orders, all with a speed that their enemies couldn't possibly match. They could outmaneuver and outstrategize their opponents because they could see the entire chessboard while their foes could only see their immediate surroundings. A fascinating and macabre detail reported by the Spanish was the existence of battlefield Qhapaq. After a skirmish, a Qhapaq would survey the scene and create a Qhapaq detailing the outcome. A black string might record the number of enemy soldiers killed. A white string with raid knots might record the number of Inca soldiers wounded. It was a chillingly precise and dispassionate form of after-action report, turning the chaos of battle into cold, hard data to be sent back to the high command. The academic debate here is a classic chicken and egg problem. Did the incredible expansion of the Inca Empire drive the development of the Qhapaq and Chasqui system out of sheer necessity? Or did the existence of this highly efficient information system enable and encourage the empire's rapid expansion in the first place? Most historians agree that it was a feedback loop. As the empire grew, it needed better administrative tools, which in turn allowed it to grow even larger and more complex. The Qhapaq and the Chasqui were both a cause and a consequence of Inca imperialism. You push the dark thoughts from your mind. Speculation is a luxury you cannot afford. Your job is not to interpret the message, but to deliver it. The red string changes nothing about your task. It only amplifies its importance. You focus back on your body, on the mechanics of running. The pain in your legs is a welcome distraction now, a physical sensation that can drown out the anxious buzz in your brain. The landscape is changing again. The path is wider, the stones more evenly laid. You see signs of increased traffic, the droppings of llamas, the worn grooves in the stone. These are all signs that you are approaching a more significant tempo, a larger node in the network. This is the end of your run. You can feel the finish line. The thought of rest is tantalizingly close, but the image of that single red string, a bloody thread in a web of information, gives your final push a desperate, frantic edge. You are a human alarm bell, and you need to be wrong. Your frantic pace has brought you to the lip of a high plateau. As you emerge from the winding path, the world opens up, and the view that greets you is so vast and so breathtakingly beautiful that it forces you to a halt. Your body screams for you to keep moving, but your soul demands that you stop and bear witness. You stand on the edge of the world. Below you, a sweeping valley unfolds, a patchwork of greens and browns cradled by the arms of colossal, snow-capped mountains. The peaks, the greater pews, are titans of rock and ice, their summits glowing with an almost supernatural light against the deep blue of the sky. Condors, the sacred messengers of the gods, circle on thermal updrafts far below you. Their wingspan is immense even from this distance. The air here is thin and pure, and the silence is absolute. It's not an absence of sound, but a presence, a deep, resonant hum that seems to emanate from the earth itself. The sun is warm on your face, and a gentle breeze cools the sweat on your brow. In this moment, you are not a runner, not a cog in a machine. You are just a man, a tiny speck of life in a landscape of divine proportions. You feel a profound sense of awe and humility. This is the world the Sapa Inca protects. This is the land your ancestors have walked for thousands of years. The struggles of your run, the pain in your muscles, the anxiety of the red string. It all seems to shrink in the face of this majestic, eternal beauty. It's a moment of clarity. The god's eye view that recontextualizes as your small, frantic life. The Inca worldview was deeply intertwined with the landscape. It was not just a backdrop for human events. It was an active participant. The mountains were deities. The rivers had spirits. The earth itself, Pachoma, was the mother of all living things. Every rock, every spring, every cave could be a hookah, a sacred place with its own power and personality. This belief, often dismissed as nature worship by outsiders, was actually a sophisticated and intimate way of understanding and living within a powerful environment. It fostered a sense of respect and reciprocity. You took from the land, but you also gave back. Through offerings, prayers, and rituals. Your brief pause here is its own kind of offering. A moment of silent, mindful appreciation. You look out over the valley and see the faint, silvery trace of the Qhapaq Ñan as it continues its journey. A human-made thread stitched across the grand tapestry of Pachoma. You can see tiny, almost invisible signs of human settlement. Small clusters of stone houses, terraced fields, Andeans, climbing the hillsides like giant green staircases. These terraces were another marvel of Inca engineering, allowing your people to grow crops on impossibly steep slopes, transforming a hostile landscape into a productive one. A small, quirky detail that archaeologists have discovered is the presence of viewing platforms or ceremonial seats carved into rocks at points along the Qhapaq Ñan with particularly spectacular views. Just like this one, sometimes called Inca thrones. These carved seats are often located at places that align with sacred peaks or astronomical events, like the solstice sunrise. It suggests that the Incas deliberately designed the road not just for efficiency, but also for experience. They wanted the traveler, at least the high-status traveler, to pause and appreciate the sacred geography of the empire, to literally sit and absorb the power of the landscape. Historians and anthropologists are still debating the true purpose of these Inca thrones and other landscape modifications. Were they purely ceremonial sites for religious rituals? Were they astronomical observatories? Or were they political statements? Places for the Sapa Inca or his representatives to sit and symbolically dominate the land spread out before them? The answer is likely all of the above. For the Incas, religion, astronomy, and political power were not separate categories. They were all interwoven. A spot that was good for observing the sun was also a powerful place to perform a ritual, which in turn reinforced the state's authority. This moment of peace is a gift, but it's one you can't afford to indulge in for long. The urgency of the red string still hums beneath the surface of the awe. You have paid your respects to the Apus. You have filled your soul with the grandeur of your homeland. And now you must return to your duty. You take one last, deep breath of the thin, clean air, committing the image to memory. This is why you run. Not just for the emperor, not just for the empire, but for this, for the snow on the peaks, for the condor on the wind, for the silent, powerful presence of the mountains themselves. You turn away from the view, your spirit strangely refreshed and calmed, and begin to run again. Your steps feeling lighter now, your purpose renewed. The end of your journey is just ahead, down in the valley below. The descent into the valley is steep and rapid. The path is no longer a series of switchbacks but a long, straight staircase that plunges downwards. With every step, the air grows thicker and the sounds of the world return. You can hear the buzzing of insects, the distant bleating of llamas, the faint sound of human activity. The profound silence of the high plateau is gone, replaced by the low hum of civilization. Your body knows the end is near. It's a strange and treacherous moment in any endurance effort. The proximity of the finish line can give you a false sense of energy, tempting you to sprint when you have nothing left. But it can also make every remaining step feel like an eternity. The pain, which you had managed to push to the background of your mind, comes roaring back to the forefront. Your knees ache from the punishing descent. Your ankles feel weak and unsteady. A blister you hadn't noticed before is now screaming from the side of your heel. You are running on fumes, on pure will. The coca in your cheek is long depleted, a drying, tasteless wad of pulp. Your mind is fixed on a single image, the Chasqui eye that awaits you. You scan the valley floor below, searching for the telltale sign, and then you see it. A thin, gray plume of smoke, rising straight up into the still air. It's the smoke from the cooking fire of the next temple. It's a beacon, a signal fire of sanctuary. It's the finish line. Seeing the smoke triggers the final part of your protocol. Your own Chasqui eye is now about 15 kilometers behind you, far beyond the range of sight or normal sound. But the runner waiting for you needs to be ready. You reach for the puchutia, the conch shell trumpet that has been bumping against your hip for this entire journey. You bring it to your lips. They are dry and cracked. You take as deep a breath as your exhausted lungs will allow and blow. The sound that emerges is not a clear note. It's a ragged, desperate blast, full of the errant effort of your long run. But it's low. The low, mournful tone echoes across the valley. A sound that says, I am here. I have survived. The messages say, prepare yourself. You lower the conch shell, your arm feeling heavy as lead. You can imagine the scene at the other end of that sound. The next runner, your anonymous brother, hearing the call and beginning his own final preparations. Just as you did hours ago, the cycle is about to repeat itself. The knowledge that you only have a few more minutes of running to do is both a relief and a curse. Your body wants to quit, to fall, to collapse right here on the path. You have to fight that urge with everything you have. The handoff must be clean. The momentum of the message must be maintained. You cannot stumble across the finish line. You must run through it. This final stretch is perhaps the most dangerous. Exhaustion makes you clumsy. Your focus, which has been razor sharp for hours, begins to blur at the edges. A loose stone you would have easily avoided an hour ago now becomes a serious hazard. Your feet feel like blocks of wood, and you can barely feel the ground beneath them. A strange quirk of extreme physical exhaustion is the phenomenon of auditory exclusion, where your hearing can become muffled and distant, as if your head is wrapped in cotton. The world around you seems to fade, and the only thing you can hear is the frantic, rasping sound of your own breathing and the frantic pounding of your own heart. Time itself seems to distort, stretching and compressing in strange ways. Historians and physiologists who study extreme endurance athletes see the Chasqui system as a masterpiece of human performance management. By limiting each runner's leg to a relatively short, all-out sprint, the Inca state ensured that the message was always moving at, or near maximum human speed. A single runner attempting to cover 100 kilometers would have to pace himself, to jog slowly for long periods. But a relay of 10 runners covering 10 kilometers each could sprint the entire way. The overall speed of the message was far greater. The debate is about the recovery. How long did a Chasqui have to rest before he was expected to run again? The chronicles are vague. Was it a one-run on, one-run-off system with his partner? Or did he have to be ready to run again at any moment if another message arrived? The sustainability of the system depended on this balance of work and rest, a detail that remains a mystery. You can see the tambo now. It's a small cluster of stone buildings, nestled in a grove of hardy QNUA trees. It looks exactly like the one you left. There is a comforting sameness to it. A figure emerges from the doorway of the Chasqui eye. It's the next runner. He is stretching, jogging in place, watching you approach. He looks fresh, strong, and ready. The sight of him gives you the last ounce of strength you need. You straighten your back, force your legs into a more powerful stride, and prepare your mind for the transfer. The words, you recite them one last time in your head. To the governor and VIL Cashew man, count of the new llama herds. Urgent, the fish, the KHI pool, the red string. It's all there. Your job is almost done. The final 100 meters are a blur. You are no longer consciously running. Your body is just carrying out the last command your brain issued. The waiting runner, your replacement, steps onto the path and begins to jog towards you, his movements fluid and full of energy. He is a painful mirror of what you were at the beginning of this journey. A lifetime ago, the gap between you closes, just as before. The two of you fall into a synchronized rhythm for a few paces. A brief moment of shared motion. The world narrows to his face. It's a young face, barely a man, with wide, intense eyes. He is focused, ready. To the governor in vil Qhapaq man. You gasp, the words staring at your raw throat. The count of the new llama herds. Urgent. You barely get the last word out before you are swinging the precious cargo off your back and into his waiting hands. The transfer is seamless. He takes the khipu in the pouch containing the fish without breaking stride. His fingers brush yours for a fraction of a second. A fleeting touch of human connection. And then he is gone. He accelerates away from you, up the path that leads out of the valley and towards the next high pass. He doesn't look back. He can't. His focus is already on the road ahead, on his own breathing, on the verbal message he is now committing to his own memory. You watch him for a moment, a diminishing figure of purpose, until he disappears around a bend. The message continues without you. The great relay race goes on, but your part in it is over. The moment he is out of sight, the strength that has held you together for hours dissolves completely. Your legs buckle, and you stumble to a halt. Catching yourself on the stone wall of the Chasqui was I. A wave of nausea and dizziness washes over you. You stand there, bent over, hands on your knees, just breathing. The air is thick and rich in this valley, but your body doesn't seem to know how to use it. You take deep, shuddering breaths that feel like they're doing nothing at all. This is the aftermath, the brutal, unglamorous reality that follows a heroic effort. Your entire world, which has been focused on a single, forward-moving goal, has suddenly lost its purpose. The silence he leaves behind is deafening. A figure appears in the doorway of the temple. It's an older man, the keeper of this station. He looks at you with an expression that is neither sympathetic nor unkind. It is an expression of pure, professional recognition. He has seen this 1,000 times. He holds out a ceramic cup filled with water. You take it with a trembling hand, spilling half of it before you can bring it to your lips. The water is cool and tastes like clay and life itself. You drink it greedily, the simple act of swallowing an enormous effort. He gestures for you to come inside. You straighten up, your body a constellation of aches and pains, and shuffle into the cool darkness of the hut. It smells exactly the same as the one you left. Wood smoke, damp earth, and wool. Another runner, the partner of the one who just left, is inside. He nods at you, a silent greeting of shared experience, before turning his attention back to the path. His watch has begun. This is the strange, anonymous nature of your brotherhood. You have just completed a task of vital imperial importance, a feat of incredible endurance. But there is no fanfare, no congratulations. Your reward is simple. A cup of water, a bowl of quinoa that sits waiting by the fire, and a hard stone platform on which to collapse. This was a job, not a performance. One of the most elusive subjects for historians is the emotional and psychological life of a Chasqui. The Spanish chronicles are full of awe for your speed and endurance, but they are silent about your feelings. Were you proud? Were you lonely? Were you terrified? Did you feel a sense of accomplishment after a successful run? Or just a profound, empty exhaustion? The historical record is written by outsiders looking in, focused on the function of the system, not the feelings of the individuals within it. It's a classic case of history being written about the machine, not the ghosts within it. Some revisionist historians try to read between the lines, to infer the human cost, but it remains largely a matter of speculation. You eat the stew, your hands still shaking, the simple, nourishing food slowly beginning to restore you. You are beyond tired. It's a state of exhaustion so deep it feels like a sickness. You stumble over to the empty sleeping platform, the one belonging to the runner who is now disappearing into the mountains. You don't even bother to remove your sandals. You simply lie down on the rough blanket, your body screaming with relief at being horizontal. The race continues. The red string and the sea bass are already kilometers away, moving ever closer to Cusco. But for you, the world has shrunk to the size of this stone hut. Your mission is complete. Your body has done its duty. As you close your eyes, the last thing you are aware of is the rhythmic slap of another runner's sandals on the stone path. Already far, far away. You don't remember falling asleep. You simply cease to be for a time, your consciousness extinguished by a profound, bottomless exhaustion. When you wake, the light filtering through the doorway has changed from the harsh brightness of midday to the soft, golden glow of late afternoon. You've been asleep for hours. Your body is stiff and sore, a landscape of dull aches, but the sharp, screaming pain is gone. The deep, desperate fatigue has been replaced by a heavy, bone-deep weariness. Meanwhile, the message you carried has continued its relentless journey. While you slept, it has passed through the hands of at least 4 or 5 other runners. Each one has faced their own challenges. Another steep staircase, another windswept plain, another terrifying rope bridge. Each one has felt the burn in their lungs, heard the blast of the puchutiyu, and passed the Qhapaq Ñan the verbal message to a fresh runner. The fish, miraculously, is still fresh, cooled by the high-altitude air. The red string still signifies its silent, urgent warning. Now, after traveling for more than a day and a night, over 200 kilometers from the coast, the message is approaching its destination. It is on the final leg of its journey, in the hands of the last Chasqui in the chain. And this runner is not heading towards another lonely tambo. He is running towards the heart of the world, the navel of the universe. He is running towards Cusco. The landscape here is different. The wild, untamed nature of the remote provinces gives way to a more ordered, more cultivated world. The terraced fields are larger and more numerous, climbing the mountains in every direction. The road is wider and more grand, a clear statement of approach to the imperial center. You see more people, farmers working in the fields, llama caravans laden with goods, and imperial officials in brightly colored tunics traveling with their entourages. The runner passes through the final checkpoint, a gate in a massive wall that marks the outer boundary of the sacred city. The air itself seems to change, becoming charged with power and importance. Cusco is not just a city. It is a holy place, a sprawling, living uke. Its layout was designed to be a physical representation of a puma, a sacred animal of power, with the great fortress of Sacsayhuaman as its head. The city is a marvel of urban planning. The streets are narrow and paved, laid out in a grid system. In the center of the city, the river has been channeled into a stone-lined canal, a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering. But it's the stonework that is most astonishing. The walls of the palaces and temples are built from massive, multi-sided stones that fit together with impossible, mortar-less precision. It is said that you cannot slip the blade of a knife between them. This is the signature imperial style of Inca architecture, a clear visual statement that you have arrived at the center of power. The last Chasqui doesn't run to the Sapa Inca's palace. He would never be allowed to approach the divine emperor directly. His destination is a specific building near the central plaza. The home of the Qhapaq Ñan was I, the house of the Not Minus Keepers. This is the central processing hub for all the data that flowed into Cusco, the Empire's main server room. He arrives at the doorway, gasping for breath, and hands his precious cargo, the Qhapaq Ñan, the now critically time-sensitive fish, to an attendant. The verbal message is given. His duty is complete, and he is led away to rest and recover. He will never know the full content or the consequences of the message he brought. A little-known fact about Cusco is that it was not just a city of the living. It was a city teeming with the dead. As you know, the mummies of past emperors, the Maoquis, were kept in their palaces, attended by servants, and treated as living beings. On ceremonial days, these mummies would be brought out into the great plaza, a silent, powerful council of the dead, reinforcing the power of their lineages and the sacred history of the empire. The city was a bustling metropolis where the past was not just remembered. It was an active, physical presence. The great historical debate about Cusco concerns its population. How many people actually lived in the city center? Some Spanish chroniclers described a massive, teeming city, but archaeological evidence suggests that the core of the city, the puma-shaped heart, was not a residential area for commoners. It was an exclusive zone for the Inca elite, the nobility, and the religious orders. It was a place of palaces, temples, and administrative buildings. The common people, the farmers and artisans, lived in satellite communities outside the sacred center. So was Cusco a massive metropolis like Rome or Tenochtitlan? Or was it more like the Vatican or the Forbidden City in Beijing? A relatively small, but incredibly powerful, ceremonial and administrative core that dominated a vast surrounding population? The consensus is leaning towards the latter. The fish is immediately whisked away by other servants, beginning its own short, final journey to the imperial kitchens. But the Qhapaq, the object of real importance, is taken into the dark, quiet chambers of the Qhapaq Ñan was there. A master Qhapaq Ñan, an old man who has dedicated his entire life to the art of knots, takes the bundle of strings into his hands. The journey of the runner is over. The journey of interpretation is about to begin. Inside the Qhapaq Ñan was the air is cool and smells of dust, old wool, and dry herbs. The light is dim, filtering in from high, narrow windows, designed to protect the precious and fragile Qhapaq stored here from the harsh sun. Shelves and niches line the stone walls, holding hundreds, perhaps thousands, of rolled-up Qhapaqs, an entire library of data. This is the Empire's memory bank. The master Qhapaq Ñan sits on a low stool. He is an old man, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, but his eyes are sharpened, his fingers are nimble and sure. An attendant stands beside him and recites the verbal message brought by the final runner. From the coast, Your Excellency, he counted the new llama herds for the governor in Qhapaq. The message is marked as urgent. The old man nods slowly, his expression unreadable. He takes the Qhapaq and lays it out carefully on a dark woolen cloth spread on the floor. His fingers, trained by decades of practice, begin to fly over the strings. This is not the clumsy fumbling of an amateur. This is the fluid, confident movement of a master musician or a skilled surgeon. He is not just looking at the Qhapaq. He is reading it. His process is multi-sensey. His eyes take in the colors of the strings, the whites, the yellows, the browns, and the single, alarming slash of crimson. His fingers feel the texture of the cords, the smooth cotton, the russer alpaca wool. He notes the ply of the strings, the direction of their twist. Then he moves to the knots. He doesn't just count them. He assesses their type, their position, their relationship to each other. He holds the Qhapaq, letting the pendant strings hang, feeling their weight and their order. For the Qhapaq Ñan, this is a language. He sees the numerical data first. His fingers slide along a brown string, identifying the knots. A long knot with returns at the bottom. 4, a single knot in the tens position. 10, 2 single knots in the hundreds position. 200. The value is 214. He moves to the next string. Yobaring, the next. Sanengu. This is the llama count, a precise inventory from a distant province. It's the kind of routine data that flows into this room every day. But then his attention turns to the red string. It's thin and tied near the very end of the main cord. It has only a few small knots. It's not a count of something. It's a qualifier, a piece of metadata in the grammar of the Qhapaq. This might be an indicator that the census data is related to a military matter, confirming the suspicion that this is about supplying an army. Now the old man does something that seems strange. He brings a section of the Qhapaq close to his face and gently sniffs it. This is one of the more esoteric and debated aspects of the Qhapaq system. Some chroniclers reported that Qhapaqans could glean information from the smell of the strings. which might have been treated with specific aromatic herbs to encode another layer of meaning. It's a scratch and sniff theory of information technology, and while it sounds bizarre, in a purely tactile and oral world, using every sense to store information makes a certain kind of logic. The great academic mystery is, what happened next? How was this decoded information transmitted to the Sapa Inca? The Qhapaq Ñan would not have been granted a direct audience with the living god. The social protocols were far too strict. So, did he create a new, summarized Qhapaq for a higher-ranking official? Did he give an oral report to a courtier, who would then pass it up the chain of command? Or did he have a more direct, but still mediated, way of communicating with the emperor? One theory suggests that the Sapa Inca would sit behind a screen, and the Qhapaq Ñan would report his findings to him, with neither man seeing the other. This would preserve the emperor's divine aura while allowing for a direct and secure transfer of information. We simply don't have a clear account of this final, crucial step in the process. It's the last locked door in the long corridor of communication. Meanwhile, in the imperial kitchen, the fish has met its fate. It has been scaled, cleaned, and prepared with chili peppers and sweet herbs. It is placed on a golden plate and handed to a high-ranking servant, who will carry it to the Sapa Inca's private dining chambers. The emperor will eat his meal, a tangible symbol of his power, a taste of the distant ocean brought to him by the sweat and toil of hundreds of his subjects. He will likely never know the names of the runners who brought it to him, nor the details of their harrowing journey. He only knows that he commanded it, and it appeared. Back in the house of the not-minus keepers, the old man has finished his reading. He understands the message. There is unrest in a newly conquered coastal province. The local governor is requesting a show of force. The Lama Count is indeed an inventory of logistical support for a potential military deployment. The urgency is real. He rolls the Qhapaq back up with reverent care. His face betrays no emotion. He has done his job. Now, he must pass the information into the great, complex machine of the Inca court. The message, born in the hands of a provincial official, carried on the legs of a dozen runners, has finally reached the brain of the empire. What happens next will decide the fate of a province. The system worked. The message, carried on your legs and the legs of others, arrived. The data from the Qhapaq is being processed, and the Sapa Inca is enjoying his fresh fish. The network has performed its function with breathtaking speed and precision. It is a testament to human endurance, brilliant logistics, and absolute imperial control. It is, in many ways, a perfect system, and that perfection may have been its greatest weakness. Let's step out of your story for a moment and look ahead, to a future you cannot possibly imagine. In just a few short years, the Tawantinsuyu will be visited by strangers, men with pale skin, beards of fire, and clothes of shining metal, men who ride on giant, terrifying beasts that are not llamas. The Spanish conquistadors are coming, and the very system that made your empire so strong will be turned against it, hastening its downfall with tragic irony. When Francisco Pizarro and his small band of adventurers arrive, they will be utterly bewildered by the Qhapaq Ñan and the Chasqui network. They have never seen roads so well maintained, nor a communication system so swift, and they will learn to exploit it. The news of the invaders' arrival will, of course, be transmitted by Chasqui. They runner, much like you, will carry a Qhapaq with a red strain, and a terrified verbal message about strange men emerging from the sea. The message will fly to the Sapa Inca. At this time, the emperor Qhapaq, with incredible speed, but the information itself is so alien, so outside the realm of experience, that it will be difficult to comprehend. The system is designed to transmit known quantities, troop counts, harvest yields, news of familiar provincial unrest. How do you encode the arrival of an entirely new species of human, armed with weapons of thunder and fire? The tragedy is that the efficiency of the road network will work in the invaders' favor. Once the Spanish gain a foothold, they will use the Qhapaq Ñan to move their own small forces with a speed that would have been impossible otherwise. The roads that unified the empire will become highways for its conquest. The tamboes that fed and housed your armies will be co-opted to supply the enemy. The bridges that spanned your canyons will allow the Spanish cavalry to cross into the heartland. The entire infrastructure of the empire will be repurposed for its own destruction. And what about the Chasqui? Your silent brotherhood of runners will be caught in the middle. In the early days of the invasion and the civil war that preceded it between two Inca brothers, Chasqui and Qhapaq, you will continue to run. But who are you running for? The messages will become confused, contradictory. You might carry a command from one Inca faction in the morning and one from a Spanish commander in the afternoon. The clear, singular purpose of serving the Sapa Inca will be shattered, replaced by the chaos of a world collapsing. One of the most poignant and debated stories from the conquest is how Pizarro captured Atahualpa in the city of Cajamarca. Atahualpa, surrounded by tens of thousands of his own warriors, agreed to meet the tiny Spanish force in the city square. Why? The Chasqui system had surely informed him of the Spaniards' numbers and movements. The consensus among historians is that Atahualpa, in his supreme confidence, fatally underestimated the newcomers. He saw them not as a military threat, but as a curiosity. Perhaps even a band of disruptive mercenaries he could easily control. The information was delivered perfectly, but the interpretation was fatally flawed by an imperial arrogance that could not conceive of an existential threat. A quirky and sad footnote to this story is the fate of the Qhapaq. The Spanish, for the most part, saw them as tools of a pagan devil, in their zeal to convert the population to Christianity and stamp out the old ways. They burned thousands of Qhapaq. It was a cultural catastrophe, the equivalent of burning the Great Library of Alexandria. The vast majority of the Inca Empire's recorded history, its data, its secrets, went up in smoke. Only a few hundred Qhapaq survived, mostly those that were buried in tombs or hidden away, leaving us with the profound and frustrating mystery we still grapple with today. Was the fall of the Inca Empire inevitable? Historians have been arguing about this for centuries. The traditional view points to Spanish superiority in weapons and tactics. A more modern view emphasizes the devastating role of European diseases, like smallpox, which ravaged the Inca population even before Pizarro's arrival, killing the previous emperor and sparking the succession crisis and civil war that fatally weakened the empire. But a compelling argument can be made that the empire's very nature, its highly centralized, top-down structure, was a critical vulnerability. The entire empire was controlled by one man, the Sapa Inca. When the Spanish cunningly removed the head by capturing Atahualpa, the body was paralyzed. The rigid, hierarchical system couldn't adapt. Local generals didn't dare to act without orders. The system was too perfect, too dependent on its center. It was a magnificent, powerful, but brittle creation. Your incredible efficiency as a runner was part of that beautiful, tragic brilliance. You helped create a system so streamlined that when it was broken, it shattered completely. But all of that, the invaders, the fall of an empire, the burning of the knots, is in the future. It is a ghost story that has not yet been told. It does not exist in your world. Your world is the small, dark Chasqui was I, the smell of the fire, and the deep, satisfying ache of a body that has been pushed to its limit and has earned its rest. You drift in and out of a light, dream-filled sleep. You dream of running, not the grueling, painful run of your duty, but a different kind of running. You dream you are a condor, gliding effortlessly on the wind. The entire valley is spread out beneath you like a painted cloth. You see the road, a thin white ribbon, but you are not bound to it. When you finally wake for good, the hut is dark. The fire has been banked to glowing embers. Your partner, the one who took over the watch from you, is asleep on his own platform, his breathing slow and steady. It is your turn to watch again. You rise, your muscles protesting, and move to the doorway. The night is clear and cold. The stars are brilliant. Silent canopy. The moon is nearly full, casting a pale, ethereal light on the landscape, turning the stone path into a silver river. Nothing is moving. The world is at peace. Your job, your purpose, is simple once more. To wait, to watch, to be ready. Another message will come. It might be in an hour, or not until dawn. It might be a mundane report, or another khipu with a red string. You do not know, and it doesn't matter. When it comes, you will be ready. You are a Chasqui, a ghost runner, a silent, fleeting figure on the great roads of the Andes. Your name will not be remembered. Your individual feats will not be recorded in any song or story. You are anonymous, a human link in an endless chain. But you and your brothers are the lifeblood of the Tawantinsuyo. You are the force that binds 1,000,000 square kilometers of mountain and desert into a single, unified whole. Your pounding footsteps are the heartbeat of the Inca world. The legacy of your run endures in ways you couldn't imagine. It endures in the Quechua language, still spoken by millions in the Andes. It endures in the Qhapaq bridge, rebuilt each year with woven grass. It endures in the terraced fields that still cling to the mountainsides. And it endures in the spirit of the Andean people, a spirit of resilience, endurance, and a deep connection to the sacred land. Modern ultramarathoners now run races through the Andes, following sections of the same Qhapaq Ñan you are running on now. They have lightweight shoes, high-tech gear, and specially formulated energy gels. But they are trying to capture a shadow of what you do every day. They run for sport, for personal achievement. You run for the survival of an empire. You chew a fresh quid of coca leaves, the sacred numbness spreading through your mouth, sharpening your senses for the long watch ahead. You stare out into the moonlit silence, a guardian of the roads, a servant of the sun god's sun. You are a single, perfect gear in a machine of breathtaking scale. You are at peace. The night is long, and you are ready for the race to come to you once more. And so, the story of your run comes to a close. The moon climbs higher in the sky, its cool light a gentle blanket over the sleeping mountains. The wind whispers softly through the arch of grass, the sound like a long, slow exhalation. The chill in the air deepens, pulling you further into the warmth of your own quiet thoughts. The urgency of the day has faded, replaced by the profound and immense peace of the Andean night. Your breathing slows, finding a deep and easy rhythm, echoing the slow, steady heartbeat of the earth beneath you. Feel the weight of your body, the gentle pull of gravity, a comforting anchor holding you to your rest. The aches and pains of your long journey are softening, melting away like snow in the morning sun. They are distant memories now, echoes in a story that has already been told. You are no longer on the path. You are drifting now, floating in that soft, quiet space between wake signals and sleep. The images of the day, the flash of a red string, the terror of the swaying bridge, the majestic view from the high plateau, are all softening at the edges, becoming the substance of dreams. Let them go. Let them drift away like clouds passing before the moon. There is nothing left for you to do. The message has been delivered. The race is over. All that remains is this deep, quiet, and well-earned rest. Listen to the silence. It is not empty. It is filled with the faint, distant glittering of the stars, with the slow, patient breathing of the mountains, with the endless, gentle turning of the world. Allow yourself to become part of that silence. Allow yourself to dissolve into the peaceful, dream-filled dark. You are safe. You are at rest. Sleep now.